The annual Morrison family reunion was in full swing, the backyard of my aunt's sprawling estate filled with the usual suspects. Doctors, surgeons, and medical directors, our family's pride and joy. And then there was me, the failed doctor according to them. "Oh look, Sarah's here," my cousin Victoria announced loudly as I stepped onto the patio. She was holding court with our other cousins, all of them wearing their white coats like badges of honor even at a family barbecue. "Still working at that research facility?" I nodded, clutching my wine glass tighter. "Yes, I'm still at Maxwell Medical Research Center." "Such a shame," Victoria sighed dramatically. "You had so much potential in medical school. Top of your class, everyone thought you'd be a brilliant surgeon like your father." I bit my tongue, remembering the day I'd told my family I was leaving traditional practice to focus on medical research and hospital administration. You'd think I'd announced I was becoming a street performer. "Remember when she quit her residency?" My cousin Michael chimed in loud enough for everyone to hear. "Poor Sarah couldn't make it as a real doctor." Laughter rippled through the group. I saw my father across the lawn pretending not to hear. He'd stopped defending me years ago, too embarrassed by my career choices to bother. "How much does research even pay?" Victoria pressed, her diamond ring catching the sunlight as she gestured with her glass. "Certainly not enough to afford a house in our neighborhood." More snickers. I took a slow sip of wine, thinking about the offer letter sitting on my desk back at the office. The one that would make their perfectly styled heads spin. "Speaking of real medical work," Michael continued, "I just performed the most fascinating emergency cardiac surgery yesterday. The patient." I tuned out his detailed description of the procedure, my mind drifting to the meeting I'd had earlier that week. The board had been unanimous in their decision. At 32, I would be the youngest chief of operations at Maxwell Medical Center, overseeing all hospital administration, including surgical approvals and staff privileges. Not that my family knew Maxwell Medical Center had acquired 3 major hospitals in the area, including the prestigious one where Victoria and Michael practiced. They had no idea that their failed cousin was about to become their boss. "Sarah." My Aunt Eleanor's sharp voice cut through my thoughts. "At least help with something useful. The paper plates need restocking." I moved toward the kitchen, used to being treated like the help at these gatherings. On my way, I overheard my Uncle Thomas, chief of surgery at Metropolitan Hospital, talking in hushed tones with my father. "The merger's happening next week," he whispered. "Some corporate big shot from Maxwell is taking over operations. They're reviewing all surgical privileges." "Surely they won't change anything," my father responded, worry creasing his brow. "Our family's reputation." I smiled to myself, continuing to the kitchen. They had no idea that I'd spent the last 5 years revolutionizing hospital administration systems, making Maxwell Medical Center the most efficient and prestigious medical facility in the state. That corporate big shot they were worried about? They were looking at her. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a message from my assistant. "Final paperwork signed. Announcement scheduled for Monday." I typed back quickly, "Perfect. Don't forget to send the new surgical privilege review notifications first thing Monday morning." Victoria's voice carried from the patio. "At least Sarah can help with the plates. She's good at serving others." More laughter. I straightened my shoulders and walked back outside, plates in hand. Let them laugh. Monday morning would change everything. "Need any help?" Michael asked mockingly as I passed. I know how overwhelming simple tasks can be for research people. I set down the plates and turned to him with a sweet smile. "No thanks, Michael. I'm quite good at managing things. You'll see just how good very soon." He frowned, catching something in my tone, but I was already walking away. 2 days. In 2 days, they'd all discover exactly what kind of doctor I'd become. Monday morning arrived with delicious predictability. I sat in my new corner office at Maxwell Medical Center, watching the sunrise reflect off the building's glass facade. My assistant James knocked and entered with a stack of papers. "They're all here," he said, barely containing his grin. "Every surgical privilege review notification has been sent. Including to Metropolitan Hospital?" I finished, allowing myself a small smile. "Yes, and Dr. Victoria Thompson's already called 3 times demanding to speak with the new chief of operations. She says it's a family matter." Of course she did. The Morrisons had always used family connections to get their way. Let them stew for another hour, I replied, straightening the nameplate on my desk. Dr. Sarah Morrison, Chief of Operations, gleamed in polished brass. Right on cue, my phone lit up with messages. Dad, Sarah, we need to talk. Uncle Thomas is panicking about the surgical reviews. Victoria, whatever pull you have with the new administration, use it. Family first. Michael, this is ridiculous. I demand to speak with whoever's in charge. I let them pile up, focusing instead on the morning's reports. At precisely 10 a.m., James buzzed my intercom. Dr. Thompson and Dr. Michael Morrison are here. They're insisting. Send them in. Victoria burst through the door first, her designer heels clicking aggressively against the floor. Michael followed, both still wearing their white coats like armor. They stopped short at the sight of me behind the massive desk. Sarah. Victoria's perfectly shaped eyebrows shot up. What are you doing in the chief's office? Where's the new administrator? I leaned back in my chair, savoring the moment. You're looking at her. The color drained from their faces. Michael's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. That's impossible. You're just a researcher. Actually, I replied, opening their files on my computer, I've been running Maxwell's administrative operations for the past 5 years. We've acquired 3 hospitals in the region, including Metropolitan. And now, I met their shocked stares. I'm reviewing all surgical privileges. You can't do this, Victoria sputtered. We're family. Funny, I said, that didn't seem to matter at the reunion when you were mocking my career choices. Those were jokes. Michael protested. We didn't mean. Your surgical error rates. I cut in, turning my monitor to show them the data. They're concerning. Especially yours, Michael. 3 complications in the last month alone. He paled further. Those were complex cases. And you, I turned to Victoria, your patient satisfaction scores are among the lowest in the department. Apparently, being a real doctor involves more than just wearing a white coat to family barbecues. I'll call Uncle Thomas, Victoria threatened, pulling out her phone. He won't stand for this. Uncle Thomas? I smiled. You mean the former chief of surgery? He's being replaced next week. His retirement package is quite generous, though. I made sure of that, since we're family. The reality of their situation finally seemed to sink in. Their perfect world of nepotism and privilege was crumbling, and their dismissed cousin held all the power. What do you want? Victoria asked, her voice small. What I've always wanted, excellence in patient care. You have 3 months to improve your numbers. Regular reviews, additional training, and... I paused. No more special treatment because of our last name. And if we refuse? Michael challenged weakly. I picked up my phone. Then I start making calls to other hospitals. I hear County General is always looking for surgeons. Though the pay isn't enough to afford houses in your neighborhood. The next family gathering was considerably different. My aunt's backyard was quieter, the usual medical bravado replaced by subdued conversations. Victoria and Michael had spent the past 3 months actually focusing on their patients instead of their social status. Surprisingly, they were discovering they were better doctors for it. I arrived late, having just finished a board meeting. As I walked through the garden, people parted like the Red Sea. Amazing how a change in power could shift perspectives so quickly. Sarah. My father approached, looking uncomfortable. We haven't really talked since. Since you found out your failed doctor-daughter runs the largest medical network in the state? I finished for him. He flinched. I deserve that. I should have supported your choices. Yes, you should have. I accepted a glass of wine from a passing server. But it's not about support anymore, Dad. It's about change. Real change. Across the lawn, I spotted Victoria talking with a young resident, actually mentoring instead of showcasing her designer watch. Michael was discussing a difficult case with another surgeon, focused on patient care rather than his own glory. They're different, Dad observed, following my gaze. Amazing what happens when people have to earn their positions, I replied. My Uncle Thomas approached, his retirement watch glinting in the sunlight. Sarah, got a minute? We walked to a quiet corner of the garden. The changes you're making at Metropolitan, he began, they're working. Patient outcomes are improving. Even Victoria and Michael. He shook his head in wonder. They're good doctors, I said. They just needed to remember why they became doctors in the first place. I was wrong about you, he admitted. We all were. Running a hospital isn't just about performing surgery. It's about leadership, vision, and research. I added with a slight smile. He laughed. Yes, and research. The party continued, but the dynamics had shifted permanently. No more mocking, no more hierarchy of specialties. Just medical professionals focused on what really mattered: patient care. My phone buzzed, a message from James. Emergency at Metropolitan. Dr. Thompson requesting surgical approval. I stepped away to make the call. Victoria answered immediately. Sarah, I have a complex cardiac case. Previous surgeon refused because of the risk, but I've reviewed everything. I know I can help this patient. I listened as she detailed the case, noting the confidence in her voice, not arrogance but earned expertise. Send me the files, I said. I'll review them right away. Thank you, she paused. And Sarah, I'm sorry. For everything. After reviewing the case, I called back. Victoria picked up on the first ring. Dr. Thompson, I said formally. This is Dr. Sarah Morrison, Chief of Operations. Your surgical request is approved. Good luck. Later that night, I received another message. Victoria's surgery had been successful. The patient would live. I stood in my office looking out over the city lights. On my desk sat a new family photo from the reunion. No white coats, no forced hierarchy, just family. Real family. My assistant knocked. Dr. Morrison? The board is waiting for your presentation on the new research wing. I gathered my papers, pausing at the door. The nameplate caught the light. Dr. Sarah Morrison, Chief of Operations and Research Director. Sometimes success isn't about proving others wrong. Sometimes it's about showing them a better way. And sometimes, just sometimes, family can learn to change. As I walked to the boardroom, my phone lit up with one last message from Victoria. Patient recovering well. Thank you, boss. I smiled. In the end, being a real doctor wasn't about titles or specialties. It was about making a difference, whether in an operating room or a boardroom. And I had finally taught my family that most important medical lesson. Healing isn't just about fixing bodies. Sometimes it's about fixing broken systems, broken perspectives, and even broken families. The annual Thompson family dinner was in full swing at my parents' country club. My sister Rebecca was holding court, detailing her latest promotion at Goldman Sachs while our parents beamed with pride. I sat quietly, picking at my salad, waiting for the inevitable turn of conversation. And Sarah, Mom's voice dripped with disappointment, are you still doing that online thing? I suppressed a smile, thinking about the empire I'd built while they thought I was just blogging. Sterling Technologies, my company, had revolutionized financial software, though my family still thought I was running some kind of lifestyle website. His mom. Still working on my projects. Projects? Rebecca snorted into her champagne. Is that what we're calling Instagram posts now? Dad cleared his throat, setting down his fork with that familiar look of parental intervention. Sarah, your mother and I have been talking. You're 32 now, and this hobby of yours isn't leading anywhere. My phone buzzed quietly, a notification from my CFO. Acquisition of Morgan Financial complete. Company value now exceeds $500 million. We've decided, Mom continued, that it's time for tough love. No more support. No more living in the guest house. It's time you got a real job like your sister. I glanced at Rebecca, who was practically glowing with smugness. If they only knew that Sterling Technologies had developed the trading algorithm her department at Goldman used every day. I understand, I said calmly, opening my laptop. Before you continue, though, maybe you should see something. Sarah, Dad's voice held that warning tone. This isn't the time for your internet stories. I turned the screen toward them, displaying Sterling Technologies' financial dashboard. Actually, it's the perfect time. See that number at the top? That's my company's current valuation. Mom's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. Rebecca leaned forward, her designer glasses slipping down her nose. That's not possible, she stammered. That's $500 million. $512 million actually, I corrected. Though it fluctuates hourly. The Morgan Financial acquisition just completed. Dad's face had gone pale. Morgan Financial? But that's one of the largest financial software companies in the country. I smiled. Now it's a subsidiary of Sterling Technologies. My company. Your blog is worth $500 million? Mom's voice had risen an octave. Mom, I don't have a blog. I run a financial technology company that develops trading algorithms and banking software. That online thing you've been dismissing? It powers half the transactions on Wall Street. My phone buzzed again. Another message from my CFO, Goldman Sachs, requesting urgent meeting about algorithm licensing. I glanced at Rebecca, wondering if she knew her department's success relied on my technology. In fact, Rebecca, how's that new trading platform working out? The one your team started using last quarter. Her face went from smug to shocked as realization dawned. Sterling, that's you? Yes, that's me, I confirmed, pulling up more data on my laptop. Sterling Technologies provides the backbone for most major financial institutions' trading platforms, including Goldman Sachs. The country club's dining room suddenly felt very small as my family processed this information. Mom's perfectly maintained composure cracked like thin ice. But you live in our guest house, she whispered. Actually, I smiled, I own the penthouse at the Alexandria. I named the city's most exclusive residential building. I kept the guest house for appearances while I built my company. It was enlightening to see how you treated me when you thought I was struggling. Rebecca was frantically scrolling through her phone, probably looking up Sterling Technologies. This can't be right. You're saying you're my company's biggest software vendor. Vendor, partner, and soon-to-be majority shareholder, I corrected, watching her face pale. That urgent meeting your department requested this morning? It's because we're acquiring a controlling interest in your division. Dad's financial advisor training kicked in. $500 million. How did you, when did? Remember that small inheritance from Grandma 5 years ago? I asked. The one you all told me not to waste on my internet startup? I turned that $100,000 into an empire while you were all busy dismissing me as a failure. My phone lit up with another notification. Goldman Sachs stock dropping on acquisition rumors. Your stake now worth $600 million. Mom reached for her wine glass with trembling hands. The charity gala last month, when you said you couldn't afford a ticket. I was the anonymous donor who funded the entire event, I finished for her. Through my charitable foundation. I wanted to see if you'd invite me anyway. You didn't. Rebecca's smugness had completely evaporated. Why didn't you tell us? Would you have believed me? I asked quietly. Every family dinner for the past 5 years has been an exercise in condescension. Get a real job, Sarah. Stop playing on the internet, Sarah. Be more like your sister, Sarah. I turned my laptop to show them Sterling's organizational chart. While you were mocking my online thing, I built a company that employs over 500 people. We have offices in 12 countries. That algorithm your team uses, Rebecca? I wrote the original code myself. But your clothes. Mom gestured weakly at my simple outfit. Your car. Are chosen specifically to maintain my privacy, I explained. Success doesn't need to be advertised. Though if you'd ever actually visited my tiny apartment downtown, you might have noticed it occupies the entire top floor of my company's headquarters. The silence at our table was deafening. Around us, the country club's usual dinner crowd continued their conversations, unaware of the earthquake happening at the Thompson table. Miss Sterling, a waiter approached nervously. The club manager would like to know if everything is satisfactory with your usual table. Your usual table? Dad's eyebrows shot up. Yes, Mr. Thompson, the waiter continued. Your daughter owns a controlling interest in the club. We normally reserve her private dining room, but she requested the main room tonight. I waved the waiter away, enjoying the stunned expressions on my family's faces. I acquired the club last year when it was facing bankruptcy. Though I kept that quiet since you all love telling people you're founding members. All this time, Mom whispered, when we were worried about you wasting your life. You were too busy judging to notice what I was building. I pulled up more documents on my laptop. Would you like to see what else you've missed? The tech incubator I founded, the venture capital fund, the real estate portfolio. Rebecca found her voice. The Goldman acquisition. You're really buying my division? Already bought it, I corrected, showing her the confirmation that had just come through. The announcement goes out tomorrow morning. Congratulations, by the way, you now work for your little sister. Dad's financial advisor instincts finally kicked in fully. Sarah, honey, perhaps we should discuss some investment opportunities. I have clients who would be very interested in. Stop, I held up my hand. 5 years ago, you told me no legitimate investor would touch my internet scheme. Now you want to discuss opportunities? After trying to cut me off. Mom reached across the table. Sweetheart, we were just worried about you. Living in the guest house, driving that old car. That old car is a vintage Porsche worth more than your house, I interrupted. The guest house charade was my choice. I wanted to see who my family really was, how you treated someone you thought was struggling. I pulled up another screen showing my personal net worth separate from the company valuation. The number made Rebecca choke on her wine. That's more than our entire family fortune, she gasped. Many times more, I confirmed. Which makes this conversation about cutting me off rather ironic, don't you think? Just then my actual phone, not the basic model they were familiar with, lit up with an urgent message from my executive team. I held up a finger to pause the family drama. Yes. I answered, putting it on speaker deliberately. Ms. Sterling, Goldman Sachs, is requesting an emergency board meeting. Their CEO would like to discuss the acquisition terms personally. Push it to tomorrow, I replied, watching Rebecca's face as she realized how far up the corporate ladder I reached. I'm having an enlightening family dinner. Very good. Also, the Alexandria penthouse renovations are complete. Would you like to schedule the housewarming? Perfect timing, I smiled. Please send cars for my family tomorrow evening. I think it's time they saw how their struggling daughter really lives. After ending the call, I turned back to my stunned relatives. So, about cutting me off. Sarah, Dad began, but I held up my hand. Let me finish. For 5 years I've watched you all make assumptions about my life. You saw what you expected to see. The disappointing daughter who couldn't get a real job. Meanwhile, I built something extraordinary. I stood up, smoothing my deliberately modest dress. Tomorrow evening you're all invited to my actual home. Not the guest house but my penthouse. It's time you saw the truth. But Sunday dinner. Mom started weakly. We'll be at my place from now on, I finished. Though you might find the view rather different from what you're used to. Rebecca was still staring at her phone, probably watching her company's stock price react to the acquisition rumors. You're really my boss now? Technically, I'm your boss's boss, I corrected. Though don't worry, I won't fire you. In fact, I'm promoting you to head of client relations. You're good at that part. It's the technical side you've been struggling with. How did you know I was struggling? She asked. Because I designed the system you use, I reminded her. I get detailed analytics on every user, including my sister. Dad cleared his throat. About the guest house. Keep it, I smiled. Consider it a reminder of how appearances can be deceiving. Though you might want to check who actually owns your mortgage. Their faces showed dawning horror as they realized just how far my influence reached. The country club membership, Mom said suddenly. Our house. Rebecca's condo. All under the umbrella of Sterling Properties, yes. I gathered my things. My real estate division has been quite active locally. Did you never wonder why your refinancing was approved so easily last year? As I prepared to leave, I turned back one last time. Oh, and Mom? About cutting me off from family support? I think I'll manage. Though you might want to consider who's been secretly supporting whom. The next evening, as my family stepped into my 10,000 square foot penthouse with its panoramic city views, I watched their faces register the full scope of what they'd missed. The art collection worth millions, the technology that made their smart homes look primitive, the staff that managed my daily life. This is how you really live. Mom whispered, taking in the private helicopter pad visible through the floor-to-ceiling windows. This is how I've lived for the past 3 years, I corrected. While you were all worrying about my future, I was building it. The guest house was just a social experiment. One that taught me exactly who my family was when they thought I had nothing. Rebecca wandered over to my home office, where multiple screens displayed real-time data from global markets. Are those all your companies? Just the public ones, I said. The private portfolio is considerably larger. Dad stood in front of a wall of awards and press clippings, coverage I'd kept hidden from them until now. Technology CEO of the Year. 40 under 40. Most influential women in finance. I had them hung yesterday, I admitted. They usually stay in storage. Success doesn't need to be displayed when you're actually successful. As my staff served dinner on my private terrace, with the city glittering below us, I watched my family struggle to reconcile their previous image of me with reality. The foundation that funded Rebecca's hospital wing last year, Mom said suddenly. That was you, wasn't it? Anonymous donations are only anonymous if you don't talk about them, I replied. But yes, that was me. Just like the scholarship fund at Dad's alma mater and the new cancer research center bearing Mom's maiden name. All this time, Rebecca shook her head, we thought we were the successful ones. Success isn't about appearing successful, I told them. It's about building something meaningful while everyone else is busy showing off. As they left that evening, thoroughly humbled, Dad turned back. We were wrong about you. All these years. Yes, you were, I agreed. But now you have a choice. You can either be the family who tried to cut off their secretly successful daughter, or you can be the family who finally learns to look past appearances. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't showing people what they missed. It's showing them what they could still be part of, if they learn to see clearly. The quarterly family lunch was Mom's idea. A way to stay connected despite busy schedules. Today's venue was an upscale steakhouse near my brother Marcus's office at Stratton Digital Solutions. Jen, you really should apply to Stratton, Mom said as our appetizers arrived. Marcus could put in a word. Excellent benefits. I have a company, Mom, I said. CloudSync. We provide enterprise cloud management software. Marcus laughed, loosening his tie. At 33 he never let me forget he was 3 years older. Company. Come on, sis. You have what, 5 people working on some app? 47 employees. Our software manages cloud infrastructure for over 300 enterprise clients. Sure, he dismissed. Dad, tell her. Real companies have office buildings, boardrooms, hierarchies. Not kids coding in coffee shops. What they didn't know, what they'd never bothered to learn despite 5 years of trying to explain, was that CloudSync had become one of the fastest-growing enterprise software companies in the region. Last year's revenue, $68 million. What they really didn't know was that Stratton Digital Solutions was in serious trouble. Outdated software. 3 major clients lost. Stock price down 40%. The board was desperately seeking a buyer. And what nobody at this table knew was that CloudSync had acquired Stratton 6 days ago. Contracts finalized this morning. Press release scheduled for 4 p.m., 2 hours from now. By tomorrow Marcus would work for a company I owned. Jennifer needs to get serious, Aunt Lisa added from across the table. He worked in HR at Stratton. Playing entrepreneur is fine in your 20s, but you're 30 now. CloudSync just signed a partnership with AWS, I said mildly. That's nice, honey, Mom patted my hand. Marcus, tell everyone about your promotion. Marcus grinned. VP of Technology. Youngest VP in Stratton's history if I get it. Announcement next month. There would be no announcement. There would be no independent Stratton next month. The brand would survive as my subsidiary, but everything else was changing. See, that's a career path, Dad said. Director to VP to C-suite. That's how you build wealth. How much does your startup even make? Marcus smirked. Real numbers. Last year we cleared $68 million in revenue, I said calmly. This year we're tracking toward $92 million. Silence. Marcus's smirk faltered. You're exaggerating, he said finally. We're a cloud infrastructure platform serving enterprise clients. Average contract value is $200,000 annually. We have 347 active clients. The math isn't complicated. If that were true, Stratton would know about you, Aunt Lisa said dismissively. Stratton does know. We beat you for Peterson Manufacturing last quarter. And Midwest Healthcare. And Continental Finance before that. Marcus went red. Those were strategic decisions. We chose not to pursue those clients. You pursued them. Your bids were rejected because your software couldn't match our capabilities. Peterson's CTO told me directly that Stratton's technology was 5 years behind. That's not true, Marcus snapped. It is. Stratton's struggling, Marcus. Everyone in the industry knows. Stock down 40%. 3 major clients lost. Outdated technology stack. How do you know all this? Dad demanded. I track competitors, analyze trends, study financial reports. It's called running a business. My phone buzzed. My CFO, press release ready. 4 p.m. as planned. All docs finalized. I checked my watch. 2:47 p.m. 1 hour 13 minutes. You think you're so smart, Marcus said tightly. You dropped out of corporate to play entrepreneur. Work from home. Don't even have a real office. 3 offices actually. Seattle, Austin, Denver. Plus remote employees across 12 states. I work from home by choice. If your company was really successful, you'd be in the news, Aunt Lisa said. People would know about you. We're B2B enterprise software. We don't need consumer recognition. Our clients know us. That's what matters. Mom jumped in. Both of you have done well in your own ways. Marcus with his established career, Jennifer with her entrepreneurial spirit. Let's order. The conversation shifted to safer topics. But Marcus kept glancing at me, calculating, wondering if my revenue numbers were real. At 3:52 p.m. I returned from the restroom. My phone started buzzing constantly. Across the table Aunt Lisa's phone rang. Then Marcus's. That's odd, Aunt Lisa said. It's our CEO's office. On a Saturday. Marcus checked his phone. Urgent email from corporate communications. What the hell? They opened their messages. I watched their faces carefully. Aunt Lisa went pale. Marcus's mouth fell open. This is a joke, Marcus said hollowly. This has to be. What's wrong? Dad asked. Email from Stratton So, Marcus read slowly. Company-wide announcement. Stratton Digital Solutions has been acquired by. He looked at me shocked. CloudSync Incorporated. The table went silent. That's your company, Mom said confused. Jennifer, what is this? An acquisition. CloudSync bought Stratton Digital Solutions. The deal closed this morning. I signed the final papers before lunch. You bought Stratton? Dad repeated. For $89 million. Stratton's board accepted our offer 3 weeks ago. Contracts finalized today. Marcus stood abruptly, chair scraping. You bought my company? It wasn't your company, Marcus. You were an employee. Now you're an employee of a CloudSync subsidiary. This is insane, Aunt Lisa scrolled frantically. There are news articles. Bloomberg, TechCrunch. This is real. Very real. Press release went out at 4 p.m. as scheduled. As scheduled. Marcus's voice rose. You knew during lunch. You sat here listening to me talk about my promotion while you just bought the entire company. You were talking about a promotion that's not happening. Stratton's management is being reorganized. All leadership under review. Your interview is Tuesday at 10 a.m. with my VP of Operations. Interview? For my own job. For a position at CloudSync. Your old job doesn't exist. We're integrating Stratton's team into CloudSync structure. If you're qualified and a good fit, there's a role. If not, generous severance. This is his brother, Dad protested. Keep him in his role. That's not how acquisitions work. We're not buying Stratton to maintain the status quo. We're fixing their problems. That requires restructuring. Fixing. Aunt Lisa said sharply. Stratton isn't failing. Stock down 40%. 3 major clients lost. Outdated technology. Hemorrhaging money on inefficient infrastructure. Client satisfaction scores are industry lowest. You were failing. That's why your board accepted our offer. Mom looked stricken. But you said you were playing with apps. A small startup. I said I run an enterprise software company. I've said that for 5 years. You heard playing with apps because that fit your narrative better. What happens to me? Aunt Lisa asked quietly. HR will be restructured. We have our own systems. Your position will likely be eliminated, but we'll offer outplacement services and severance based on tenure. You're firing me? I'm family. I'm streamlining redundant positions. You'll be treated fairly, same as any employee. But I won't keep unnecessary positions because we're related. Marcus sat heavily. My little sister just bought my company. I bought it from a board who needed help. You were an employee who didn't know your company was for sale. That should tell you something. Nobody was eating. Dad kept shaking his head. Mom dabbed her eyes. The interview Tuesday, Marcus said finally. What kind of role? Depends on your skills. We need senior engineers who can learn new systems. Project managers who handle complex integrations. People who adapt and grow. Not people who think they know everything and refuse to learn. Are you saying I think I know everything? You spent 5 years telling me my work wasn't real while your company collapsed. You mocked my startup while I built something that would buy your employer. Yes, I'm concerned about your ability to adapt. Aunt Lisa stood. I need to go. Call someone. My manager. HR. HR at Stratton can't help anymore. They're transitioning out too. You'll receive an email Monday with severance details. I made sure it's generous. She left without another word. Dad finally spoke. Why didn't you tell us? If your company was this successful, why keep it secret? It wasn't secret. I told you. Every family dinner for 5 years. You didn't listen. You compared me to Marcus, told me to get a real job, said I was wasting time. We didn't understand, Mom said weakly. You didn't try. When Marcus talked about work, you asked questions. When I talked, you changed the subject or gave unsolicited advice. You decided my path wasn't valid without ever learning what it actually was. Marcus stared at his phone. Trade publications call you a rising star. Forbes had you on 30 under 32 years ago. How did we not know? Because you never Googled my company. Never asked to visit my office or meet my team. You were so certain I was unsuccessful that you never bothered to check. What happens now? Marcus asked quietly. You decide if you want to work for CloudSync. Come Tuesday with an open mind. Be honest about your skills and limitations. Show me you can learn. If you can, there's a place for you. And if I can't? We part ways professionally. You'll find another job. You're talented, Marcus. But it won't be the Stratton you knew because that company doesn't exist anymore. I stood. I need to get back. We have integration work ahead. Lunch is on me. I placed $300 on the table. Jennifer, wait, Mom said. Can we talk? Really talk? About your company, everything we missed. I'd like that. But not today. Today I have 200 Stratton employees who are scared, and they deserve my attention. Let's schedule next week. A real conversation where you ask questions and listen. Okay, she said, tears falling. I'm sorry we didn't listen before. I know. But Mom, I'm not upset you didn't know. I'm disappointed you didn't care enough to find out. Tuesday came. Marcus showed up early, suited, carrying a portfolio. My VP of Operations, Sarah Chen, conducted the interview while I watched remotely. Marcus was humble. He acknowledged his limited understanding of modern cloud architecture. Admitted Stratton's technology had fallen behind. Asked intelligent questions about CloudSync systems. Why do you want to work here? Sarah asked. Marcus paused. Because my sister built something impressive and I was too proud to see it. I want to learn from people better than me. Be part of something actually innovative. After Sarah came to my office. He's salvageable. Needs humility training and serious upskilling, but the raw talent's there. Senior engineer role, not management. Let him rebuild. Offer him the position. 3-month probation, clear metrics, mandatory training. Marcus accepted. The transition wasn't easy. Ego surfaced, conflicts arose, struggles with younger engineers. But slowly he adapted. 6 months later at Sunday dinner, Marcus talked enthusiastically about his cloud migration project. The architecture is elegant, he said. I'm learning so much. Sarah's brilliant. How's the culture different? Dad asked. Night and day. At Stratton we talked about innovation but never innovated. At CloudSync we build things that matter. It's humbling. I thought I was a hotshot. Turns out I had a lot to learn. Mom smiled at me. Tell us about the Europe expansion. I did. And they listened. Really listened. Asked questions. Wanted to understand. It wasn't perfect. Old patterns don't disappear overnight. But it was real. My playing with apps had acquired their corporation. My wasting time on that startup had created hundreds of jobs and millions in value. But the real victory wasn't the acquisition or proving them wrong. It was watching my family finally see me clearly and respect the path I'd chosen, even if it looked nothing like what they'd envisioned. Success comes in many forms. But the sweetest is the success you define for yourself, regardless of whether anyone understands it. Until the day they have no choice but to understand.